Okay, haven't done one of these in a while, so we'll see how rusty I am. But let me check to make sure it works, because sometimes I'm off frame, and then it's a bummer. And I have to turn the screen around so that the text and stuff will be in the right way so you can read it. So I can't see what's going on, so I don't know. That's why I have to check. Anyways, so we're gonna talk about the frame problem. Something that just clicked in my head in the last 24, 48 hours. So I'm just going around it, and it's just driving me crazy. I need to get it out. So that's gonna help me, but hopefully you'll find it very beneficial. And I know some prospects that sometimes check out my videos, and I send out videos for people that want to work with me and stuff, so that they learn a little bit more about me and stuff. Before I talk about the frame problem, I'm gonna have 4 updates for you. So first update is, yes, some of you have asked me outside mostly if I'm done with my book and what's happening with my book. Yes, I am done with my book. I've been done for a little bit. I'm kind of still going around it, and at some point I guess I'm gonna shoot the editor and be me in this case, and just ship it to a different editor and get it going. So that's in the works. So thank you for asking for that. Second thing is, I actually have a couple other book deals happening, which once they become official, I will be making an announcement. So because they're kind of with some names, some people who are kind of well known, especially in some of the industries that I worked in. So that's important. Update number three, I am going to be putting a program together called Position to Win. And Position to Win is going to be me and my mentor. We're going to put this program together, and we're basically going to distill sort of probably the most important thing on really having a company that really can do something, and especially in the mainstream market, that there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of different things going on, and Russell Reeves talks about him. David Ogilvy talks about that. Jeffrey Moore talks about that. Harry Beckwith talks about that, and it's basically the concept of positioning, and why positioning is basically the cornerstone in which everything else is built, and why it's something that you can read a ton of books and blogs and stuff about, but nobody really knows how it applied. So not how to apply it to their particular situation. So we're going to put a program together with that. So it's going to be a series of videos. It's going to be like a course. We're going to have some interaction with them as well. So that's going to be in the works as well. And so if you wanted more information about that, let me know, and I will share something with you. So we're definitely putting that together. And I said 4 updates, but I think it's only 3, because I can't think of the 4th one. So let's just go so I don't make this video too long. So we're going to talk about the frame problem and what this is. So it's going to be a little bit combined with some of the things I've learned about AI and machine learning over the last year or something, that I've been very involved in that field. And it just kind of clicked with me this the last couple of days, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's why. That's what it is. So why are we talking about this? Well, we're talking about this because this week I actually had a couple meetings with a couple prospects and had a project, and everything kind of did that. And I realized I do that a lot. What is it that I do? I ask why. I ask, why are we doing this thing? Like, what is the meaning of this? What do you want to do here? Right? And I always done that. And I guess I never really understood why I did that until the last couple of days. I'm like, oh, that's why I do that. And I had a big project kind of landed this week, and so they sent me all these documents, and I started looking at this stuff, and I'm like, I'm coming up with all these different kinds of answers, but my thing was like, why are we doing this though? What is the meaning of this? Like, what is the end goal here, right? And it's because of the frame problem. So frame problem is something that was discovered mostly by AI, machine learning scientists. I'm not an AI scientist. I read some stuff and I like it. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, so if you want to get in-depth knowledge of this, I suggest you look it up. It's there. But basically, we've had maybe 60 years of AI research, and what we basically discover is that the easy things are hard and the hard things are easy. So that's a really good way of putting 60 years worth of AI research. And so what do I mean by that? Well, if you wanted to multiply 3,465,262,482 times 16. I don't even remember what number I just said. For a computer, that's like easy, like, but no problem. Boom, there you go, right? And so that hard thing turns out it's pretty easy, right? Now, if you want somebody, or you want an entity or a robot in this case, because that's what robotics AI is, to be a janitor or a waiter or a restaurant, whoa, that's too hard. You can't do that, right? And so it's kind of weird when you think about it. Like, why don't we have like this all automized robots, like all like I'm telling you, waiters are not gonna get automized anytime soon. Maybe there's a machine that you can place an order. That's different. But like an actual body that can interact with you. If you think about, I was a waiter at a restaurant, and I know how complicated it is. Not only on the skills that a waiter can have, you're taking different loads of different weights, of different sizes, of different temperatures. You have to interact sort of socially with the people. You can't, like, if you see them interacting, you don't just barge in, right? You go into the table when the time is right, and if there seems like they're done, you can kind of glance, and there's a lot of this. It's very hard to see. And so that's basically what it is. And one of the concepts that they came up with is the frame problem. And what is the frame problem? And here's the gist of the video. Basically, finite things, finite facts, finite factors, they can be arranged or categorized or perceived basically in an infinite amount of ways, right? So this might not seem obvious. As a matter of fact, it's probably not obvious at all. You probably think this isn't right? Because it's totally counterintuitive, and it is. And that's why it's a discovery, right? Because it's counterintuitive. If it was intuitive, we probably would have discovered it already. So basically what it is if you've played around with any kind of like photo editing software like Photoshop, and you're trying to edit a picture, and you're trying to get maybe an object or something in the picture out, you're trying to delete it, you're going to try to cut it out, you find that's pretty hard. Even now, software's getting pretty good, pretty sophisticated, but even now, it's very hard. Why? Because really, there's no lines on things, right? What we see when we look at the world, all these categories that we're seeing everything at, as they are basically categories and things built by our brain. Our brain is telling us, oh look, this is this object and this is not. I have a notebook and there's a pencil kind of like in a diagonal, but the pencil is not the same thing as the notebook below it, or there's another notebook below that and there's a little bit of a magazine sticking out. Like, all these things is being done by my brain like that, but really in reality those lines, those categorizations do not exist. Now, why am I saying this? Because it's very important to understand that perception, the way that we think about how we perceive the world, doesn't work like this. This is the way that we think it works. We think it works like we perceive what is there because, well, it's there, right? There's an object. And then we come to a realization, oh, there's a bottle of water there. And then the conclusion is, I could grab the bottle of water, or if I have a drink, if I need a drink, there it is. And so the relevancy of it is, if I need water, well, there it is, right? That's how we think we perceive the world, but that's really not at all how we perceive the world. So if you've seen, maybe you're familiar with this experiment. If you're not, I suggest you look it up. Is basically the basketball counting gorilla experiment. And so it's a very interesting experiment, actually, and it's something that sometimes is referred to as change blindness. Okay? And basically what change blindness is it basically says that you are not going to notice obvious things that change in the environment, even if they're obvious, unless somebody brings them to your attention, or if you have some kind of experience with it, or if you think that it's relevant. So like the experiment is this: they have a group of people and they have a basketball, and so they tell the subject that's watching the group of people, say, look, your task is to count the number of passes of the basketball. Okay, so go. Okay, and then the guys start passing the basketball. Okay, And so the subject starts counting 1, 2, 3. And so in the middle of this thing happening, there's a gorilla. Well, like, there's a guy who has a gorilla suit who walks right in the middle of it all, and then stands there for a little bit, and then walks out of the screen. Okay. Now what's really interesting is that after the people watch the video, they would say, well, how many passes? And they'll say 24, or however many it was. And then they would ask the people, did you see the gorilla? And what's crazy is that over half the people did not see the gorilla. They're like, what? What gorilla? And so they would rewind the video and they would be just baffled. Oh my God, like how did I miss that? And there are actually different variations on that. So if you look up on YouTube, you can look at some videos. Do not spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, all right? Just let them experience it, because it's a very powerful effect, a very powerful learning tool that you go, oh wow, I can't believe I'm so blind. Because we are really blind, okay? The way it really works is like this. We start with relevancy, okay? We start with, what are we trying to do? What's important? Okay? So, and then based on relevancy, then we perceive, okay? We perceive the things that are relevant. Our brain knows, okay, if I'm going to go get some water, right? So like I drew a little picture here of, I guess this is kind of like a brain, right? And so and so we have a motivational map of, let's say, at the sort of a lower level of the brain. And so these are the kinds of like imagery that you might have. So if I'm working here on my computer or reading or doing whatever I'm doing, then if I get thirsty, I'll start to sort of fantasize and have like imagery, have like a dream kind of thing come up from somewhere in my brain, where basically my hypothalamus is saying, look, we need some water. And so they start to have these images, and I start to have these images, and so now I start to have all these movements that I go through that it's like a routine where I know what I need to do in my apartment to get a drink of water. So I get up from wherever I am, I go to the fridge or go over there, and and I go through all these subroutines that are sort of in there already, and then have an emotion based on that. So like if everything is going as planned, then everything's good. But if I'm out of water, somebody drank my last water or whatever it is, I might have emotions like frustration, I might be upset, I might be angry, I might whatever it is. And then my analysis would be, well, what are the things that I can do to solve that problem because things didn't work as expected, okay? And so, but while I'm doing that and I'm walking to the kitchen and I'm going to the fridge, there are other things in my field of vision or my field of perception that are not relevant. Since they're not relevant, I'm actually not perceiving them. They don't happen, right? So like if I give you another example, I was at the grocery store. I was at Whole Foods last week, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I decided to take a copy of The Economist magazine. I'm a reader of The Economist with me. Okay, I don't know what I was thinking because it's not like I'm going to have time, but I thought, I don't know, I'll just take it, and if I'm wandering around the aisles, I'll be able to look, but I didn't look. So what I did is just put it on the little pocket of, I used the shopping carts that have the 2 levels, so not the big box, but the 2 levels, because that way, if I can't fit it in the 2 things, then I don't buy it. It's the only way I can save money, because that place, especially when I'm hungry. Don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry, okay? That's a life hack. Anyways, maybe you guys already figured it out, and sometimes I still do that. And so but what happened? I didn't look at the magazine, and then I unloaded all my groceries, and then I left the magazine there, and I lost it. But what's interesting about that, the reason I'm telling you the story, is that after the fact, I distinctly remember taking the car to wherever, the little lanes where you put the cards in. And I distinctly remember putting it there and not noticing that the magazine was there. How could I not notice it? It's right there. It's the only thing in the car. Well, the reason is it's not relevant. I never do that. It's not supposed to be there. So since it's not supposed to be there, I don't see it, right? And now, this doesn't always happen. I'm not saying that you can't notice things that when they're there, but sometimes you can, but most of the times you can't. Most of the times you'll be blind. Again, I refer to you to the basketball and the gorilla experiment. It's very interesting. So the way that our brain really works is that we start with what is relevant about what we're doing. Then we perceive what is relevant that we already decided that is relevant, or the things that are associated with what we already decided is relevant. And then we have a realization, oh, okay, this is what it is. And then we have a conclusion, whatever we decide to do with the thing that we realized that was there and that we perceived because we understood that it was relevant. So why is this important? Because in our companies, in our situations, in our organizations, we are not going to perceive the things that are relevant just because we think that we can see, or just because we can think, or we think that we can analyze, right? And I've been involved in a lot of projects where the answer is right there, but they literally cannot see it. And so when they ask me, well, Gabe, why should we hire you as a consultant? Something that I say kind of tongue-in-cheek, of course, I say, I can bring ignorance to the table. And they're like, what? Ignorance? Yeah, ignorance. And that gives me greater objectivity because I'm not in it all the time. So that helps me because I'm an outsider. Okay? So by being an outsider, I can see things that the other people are not seeing. As a matter of fact, the very first thing that I ask is I say, okay, what is relevant? What is important? What are we trying to accomplish here? And then I go start looking at things and perceiving things. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm good at this. I'm any better at the guerrilla experiment as anybody else. I'm going to fail. And so what happens is in my own business, I have to bring an outside consultant. I have to bring somebody that, I can bring somebody in and go, okay, what's going on here? And they tell me, and then they can see it. Oh, and I'm like, oh, crap. And so and I just did my taxes, so I know. I spent on one consulting session last year, something like $10,000. Again, this wasn't like an ongoing thing. This was like a one-time thing, but that will produce probably more money and has already. So I'm not worried about it as far as cost. But my point as far as bringing that out is that you bring somebody from the outside to do that, to be able to perceive, because you literally won't be able to. You literally, and sometimes it's kind of crazy, the bigger the organization gets, the why, the reason, the relevancy, what is relevant in this organization, it gets completely lost and buried under debris of bureaucracy and red tape that was supposed to make things easier, and it does many times as far as doing things the way that they should be done, or that they determine should be done. But in creating new value and maybe having a big breakthrough, it's not. So I was just looking at this project that was sent to me this week, and it's basically like a big stack of just analysis and just metrics and numbers and just like all this stuff, which is great. And sometimes you need that, but sometimes most of that is noise. And the more noise you have, the less you're gonna be able to see and perceive. So for me, it was like, okay, what out of all these things, what can we clean up? But if you're in it, you won't be able to see the forest because of the trees. So, frame problem. There are an infinite number of factors of things that we're looking at. There are literally infinite ways of perceiving that. So I thought and finally connected with me why it's important to figure out the why. Why it's so important to figure out where we're going. What the what the end goal is, because if we don't, then it's like we won't be able to perceive what we need to get there. So I thought I'd share that with you guys, and I think I'm gonna have a drink of water and call this video done. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for all this stuff. I'm barely not having any time to do this, but I'm always excited to do them. Always happy to do them. And anyways, so. Those were the updates. I think everything that I said is what I wanted to say, and I hope that this is helpful to you. Send me a message and tell me, or comment and tell me what you thought, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.